Hello, my gorgeous ones. How about doing a pastel palettes ranking for spring? Welcome to Alicia Budget Beauty. My name is Alicia. Here on my channel, I do all things affordable fashion and beauty. I do hauls, tutorials, reviews, palette rankings, all sorts of fun stuff. So if that sounds good to you, please subscribe, stick around, be a friend. All right, you guys, yes, we are going to do my pastel palettes ranking. And I kind of backed myself into this corner whenever I was doing my spring palettes. If you missed that, I did 45, I think 40 something spring palettes, and I had of course a lot of pastels in there, and I said maybe I should do a ranking, and then I was like, why did I say that? Because it's so hard for me to rank, but I had a little bit of interest from some of you for doing this video, and I went ahead and buckled down and I ranked the 12 pastel palettes that I have. So if you want to see where they land, which one's at the bottom, which one's at the top, keep on watching. All right, you guys, so none of these are terrible. They're still in my collection for a reason. So I do like all of these palettes, but I just have to rank them somehow. So let's just start with the bottom. Number 12 is actually a newer palette for me. It is the Dreamgaze palette from Alter Ego. Now, I did create 3 looks with this that I really liked. I thought they were really beautiful. The reason why this is ranking at the very bottom is just for me personally. I like a little bit more pigment straight out the gate. Now, not everyone's like that, especially people who are nervous about color. So this palette for some others may rank a lot higher. If you get into a palette that's more pigmented and you slap on, kind of like I did today. We'll get to this palette here in a minute. But if you put on like a blue or a green and it is like, bam, it may be too much for you. But if you still want to do some pastels, I do recommend this palette. It does take quite a bit of building up. The shimmers aren't like ultra sparkly, but you can get some pretty looks out of it. It is affordable at $22. So, but for me, out of the 12, this is just where it's going to land. All right, next up is the Oden's Eye Alva 2 palette. Now, I do think this is a really nice palette, and honestly, I need to dig into it more. I've only used it once, which is ridiculous, I know, but because I've had it for quite a while. But the reason why I'm putting it here, one is because I haven't played with it enough to really rank higher, and then 2, it does have like a little bit lackluster shimmer quality in here as compared to say like Soul Mane 2. I really love Soul Mane 2. You do have this kind of almost like a pressed glitter in here, which sometimes occasionally I like to use, but not super often. I do like that this is kind of like a take on a rainbow palette. You'll see another couple of palettes that kind of have this same like pastels, but then deeper shades as well, which I do appreciate, but this could possibly rank higher at another time. I just haven't played with it enough to feel like I could justify putting it higher. All right, at number 10, we have the Nomad Tokyo palette. I find this palette so interesting as far as people's opinions on it, because I would say 70% of the people, this isn't their favorite Nomad palette, even by like a long shot. But then I have one friend, my friend Kim, who this is her favorite Nomad palette, I believe. And her looks are so pretty with it. And she has a very extensive collection. So, you know, this might just be like a preference of formula here. But I think the mattes in here are nice. I do think it is slightly redundant with purpley shades in here, just ever so slightly. Maybe I would have appreciated a blue in here. You don't really get a pastel blue, so I'm not sure which one I would switch out, but the shimmer formula in here is more of that topper sort of formula that Nomad used to do that they've kind of steered away from now. I prefer their more current formula, but I know some people really love this palette. I do really appreciate this gray in here though. I love having a little bit of something deeper to anchor a pastel palette, so I do appreciate that about this one. All right, at number 9 is this Eunique Beauty It's Giving Main Character palette. I'm counting this one as pastels because it's so sparkly, shifty. They don't have like super deep bases to them. So I feel like these do come off pretty pastel looking. So like even though there's shifts in here, maybe like it shifts into a deeper blue, but like for the most part, it's really sparkly and fun and light and gorgeous. I love this palette. I love this formula. I'm just putting it a little bit lower because it is an all special shades palette. Unless I was going for just like a one and done shimmer on the lid, I'd have to bring in another palette. But if it had other mattes in here that correlated with these, this would rank so much higher because the quality is amazing. I know a lot of you have expressed that you really want to try this brand because I talk about it so much, like it's often in my rankings. But I will just caution that I haven't seen her put out anything new yet. But I think she's still in business, I'm pretty sure. But maybe before you purchase, I would just reach out and email just to make sure, because I'd hate for people to purchase from like the UK and then something happens. But if you can get your hands on them, so good, and also very affordable for special shades. All right, coming in at number 8 is the Glamlite Ice Cream Dream Palette. Now, I'm counting this one as pastel. Because yes, like you do have this whole side that is not pastel at all. It's actually pretty like fall leaning over here with these warm tone neutrals. But then you have this that is very pastel. And I'm counting this because this is something I really like in a pastel palette I have found, is that there is some depth, there's some variety, there's some contrast. To me, that makes a more exciting pastel palette because there's just so much you can do with it. And I think that contrast is really, really interesting. There's another palette that will rank higher that really got me thinking in a different way about pastels and made me kind of fall in love with them, because it does that. It has like something else in it that is unique and not just solely pastels. But I really do love this formula. I do find you have to build these up a little bit more than some of their other mattes, as far as like the pastel leaning shades. But I still think it's really, really nice. I do like the shimmer formula in here. This is not my favorite Glamlite palette, but I do really, really like it. And again, I love that you can do such a variety of looks. All right, at number 7, we have the Los Angeles palette, Lost in Los Angeles from BH Cosmetics. I really enjoy this one. I think mostly because of the peaches in here. I think that they're so, so pretty. And sometimes I think peach is kind of forgotten about in pastels. You'll have your pastel pink, purple, blue, green, yellow, and then sometimes the peach is left out. But I think the peaches are so beautiful in here. I really do like the formula in this. Again, I keep bringing this up about BH Cosmetics, that nothing will ever... It will never hold the weight that it did back in the day whenever it was so popular and in its heyday. One, because they owned it. It's before they sold to Makeup Revolution and went bankrupt. But 2, because back then this formula seemed so incredible. Now when I use BH, I'm like, oh, it's good, but it's not as good as a bunch of others, because a lot of others just kept going and surpassed it as far as quality. But this one is so fun. I think you get really pretty looks out of it. And again, I love that you have the peach. I love that there's a white in here as well. So that helps with the gradient of the shades. Like you can make it even more pastel if you want to. Really, really cute palette. Also really just, I think the packaging is super cute. All right, coming in at number 6 is the Nomad Paradise Islands palette. Now, one reason why this is number 6, and that might be confusing because when I did my Nomad palette ranking, my 19 larger Nomad palettes, this was number 1. So you guys may be like, whoa, that was number 1, but it's number 6 in this ranking. This is kind of a stretch for pastel. And as far as like it being a pastel palette, it would be number 6, but it may rank higher like overall in looks compared to other palettes. But I kept going back and forth. I'm like, this isn't really necessarily pastel. And it's funny because I remember when this came out, I was kind of frustrated at a few large creators that kept referring to this as a pastel palette. And I was like, where? There are a few in here, but I really look at this and I just see like a mermaid tropical. I don't necessarily look at this and see fully pastel, but I do really enjoy the looks from this palette. Again, this is one where you can kind of go lighter pastel to deep, which gives it that interest that I love. And I just love this palette a lot. So even though it's not like, if you're just looking at the pastels, it can't be ranked higher, I do still really enjoy this. All right, coming in at number 5, I'm going to put the Candy Skies by Laura Lee Los Angeles. This was in collaboration with her niece, Erin Weaver. And this is a palette that I've got to use more because I do really love this palette. And I pulled this out in my spring palettes. I said I was like, ooh, I need to use that. And then I had new palettes come in that I had to use. It kind of got in the way. But you guys, this is really nice. And you actually have a couple of shimmers in here that have a little bit of a flip to them. You know, some other shades going on. Like you have this one that is kind of like a brown green. You have this one that has like purple pink reflex. And then there's even a little bit of something different going on in this pistachio one. So I was really impressed with the formula of this. I think the color story is really beautiful. Again, we have peaches, which I love. And then you have some with like a little bit more depth, like these two here. I really like this palette. I don't think she will ever do something quite this good again. That's just my opinion, but this one was so cute. Really love this. I also think that the packaging is so pretty. All right, the top 4 were really hard of knowing where to put them, but I was like, just commit and go with it. So we have the Juvia's Place Garden of Juvia's, and I almost have this one at number 2. Then I moved it down, but I love this palette. You guys, the shimmers in here are so sparkly and pretty. They are gorgeous whenever the light hits them outside. Like I remember wearing this while I was out at the pool last year, and I would just like catch my reflection in different stuff, like say like a glass, and I was like, oh, it's so pretty. I also love how it is laid out. It's for the most part in monochromatic rose, a little bit of a variation. I'm kind of confused why this shade isn't moved over here and then this green over here, because this is so monochromatic in this one, but that's just like a little bitty side note. I just think it's so smart to put in these shades here as well, because it kind of like makes it where you can like warm it up, and that interest between like kind of like a warmer and a cooler pastel. This is so good. And just not that long ago, I saw this was on sale, I think for around $16. Juvia's will do these 50% off here and there, and absolutely $16. Like that's why, one reason why this is so high, because like the Dreamgaze palette from Alter Ego, I had at the very bottom at 12, at 22, but then you've got this one that, yes, regular price is higher, but when this goes half off and is less, but it's such good quality, it's kind of just unreal. So if you don't have this and you're looking for a pastel palette, but you don't want to spend a lot, highly recommend. All right, so at number 3 is what I do have on my eyes today. I feel like they are just glowing. It is so bold, but I think it's so pretty. And it is the new Glaminatrix Cosmetics Pretty in Pastels. Now, I have only used this palette 3 times now this week. I've been testing it out. I have used every shade in here though. And I really like it. I couldn't put it any higher because I'm still not sure that it's my favorite out of my pastels, but I'm still getting to know it, and I do really enjoy the quality. This is the type of pigment that I personally prefer when I go in with a matte. Like, these are really bold. It didn't take a lot of building up. at all to get to this level of pigment, but for some people that might be too much. So it's always helpful to have, you know, different formulas out there for different people. I love how this is set up in the rows. And then again, I love that you have this deep row here. That is something that just drew me in and why I decided to purchase this, because at first I thought I have pastel palettes, obviously now, and you're seeing 12 here total. So I almost skipped it, but it's this row that really sold me. And also when I kind of realized how it was laid out, I was like, oh, that's so smart. And the shimmers in here are so, look at this, like just when they're in the inner corner, they are blinding. On the lid, it's kind of strange because on the lid, they're not as like hello as they are when they're in the inner corner. They like really shine right here. But really, really enjoy this. I love this brand. I would be happy if this was my only pastel palette, you know, so I do highly recommend it, but there's two I just had to put a little bit higher. Okay, coming in at number 2 is the Fairtale Fairies palette from Simply Posh. This is a half pastel, half grungy correlating palette. And that is why it's ranked so high. Again, you'll just notice that theme with the top ones, that there's something else in it to anchor it, something to deepen it up, something, you know, where I would have the option if I wanted to go all light and not deepen it up, I could. Or if I wanted to deepen it up, I can. If I want to go grungy, I can. If I want to go light and fairy, I can. And then these shimmers in here are so sparkly and shifty. I really, really love this palette. I want them to make this permanent because I'd have to ask the owner. But I think this might be their most popular palette they ever had. I'm not positive, but this one and Aura Lights I know did really, really well. So man, this one's just so good. I also love that you can rearrange it if you want. I like how it's laid out, so I left it, but Simply Posh does such beautiful color stories. And coming in at number 1, the palette that got me just rethinking pastels altogether is the Blend Bunny Sickly Sweet palette. I've brought this up a lot. If you see my videos, if you haven't, I won this in a giveaway and I have quite a few Blend Bunny palettes. I've been skipping them lately. I try to be really, really conscious about what I'm purchasing because my collection's bonkers. And when I first saw this released, again, I thought I've got plenty of pastel palettes. I didn't have the Glaminatrix one at that point, but I had all the rest except for Dreamgaze. So I had 9, I guess. Yes, 9 pastel palettes. And I was like, I don't need it. I don't need it. I don't need it. But then I won it in a giveaway from my friend Jen. And when I started using this palette, I was like, oh, okay. This really surprised me. I'm so happy I own it. It really inspired me. And it is because of the deep shades that are interspersed through here. And that also threw me off whenever I saw it revealed. I was like, I don't really get that. And then now that's what I want in a pastel palette. I want something unique and different, something that can change up the look. I just love all the different tones in here. They're easy to use. These do take a little bit more building up than their normal mattes do, but they just like blend themselves just like Blend Bunny's palettes always do. And this just, I think will always be my favorite because it got me rethinking pastels in a different way. So I think it'd be really, really hard to beat this one ever. But yes, at number 1, we have Sickly Sweet by Blend Bunny. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you're looking for a pastel palette, you've got 12 to choose from here. I do like all of these, just some more than others. You guys let me know what your favorite pastel palettes are in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, have fun shopping, budget shopping. Bye.